Welcome back to the channel, guys. We're back to work on the Brutale. So behind me, we have all the parts we've sourced so far for the Brutale. So let's crack them open, show you what we got. And we have a very special box right there on the top to open up for you guys later in the video. Well, we cracked open a bunch of MV parts for the Brutale, which we will get to later. I bet you can already tell what some of that is, including why we have 2 throttle bodies. I'll explain that later. But we picked up a beautiful adapter for my Bursig center stand. This adapter is for the F4 1000RR and the Brutale RR because they share the same frame. And look at how thick this metal piece is. Beefy. Now, the only thing wrong with this is this piece right here. This does not thread into the frame bolt because the frame bolt is much wider. Now I just knocked the frame bolt out and I'll show you on the end there. Okay, never mind. I was about to show you guys, but this actually threads on perfect. I don't know what I was missing when I was setting it up. Now I got this center stand a long time ago for my R1M. This is an R1M mount and it has the same thread pitch on this black piece. So then this black piece threads onto the frame bolt, which then mounts to the Bursig center stand. Now this center stand is gonna come in clutch because of the weird design for the front calipers and the single-sided swing arm, which makes lifting and dropping the bike and accessing everything on it way easier. Which brings me to another box. Let's open right now, which has radiator fans. And man, do these look way better than mine. We've got 2 of them because the Brutale radiator takes 2 radiator fans. Unlike this ZX-10, which if you can see back there, there is only one radiator fan. So this engine must get hot. Now with these parts, I got these off of a F4RR, which actually shares a ton of similar components to the Brutale RR. And both of these fans I picked up for just about 150 bucks. Now if you see here, we are in the OEM cooling system diagram on Evolution Bike's website, and the blower assembly is 383 quid for just the two fans. So not only did I get these blower fans way faster, but I got them for cheaper, and most of the time, newer used parts are just as good as brand new. So speaking of the radiator fans, we have a crusty radiator to remove. Let me show you how we're gonna clean it. All right, check out our cleaning solution. Here is our mobile ProBlast unit by Vaniman. They're a US company based out of Southern California, and they developed this ProBlast unit. About 90 PSI shop air connected to this port, and then a foot pedal to activate the little blower nozzle, which then shoots different types of grit onto these metal surfaces, cleaning them right up. For example, we just used the aluminum oxide 60 grit, and I wrote an H with the 60 grit, and as you can tell, it's a little bit deeper than the previous grit that I used. And the first grit that I used is in this container, which was 50 micron aluminum oxide, which gave this radiator a finer finish. And we have a couple different types of media. We have walnut shells, we have 50 micron glass beads in this bag, and we have 120 grit aluminum oxide, 360 grit aluminum oxide, sodium bicarbonate, 220 to 120 grit. So lots of different types of media, including these cases that have different micron readings. This one is 50 to 100 micron. And the case we're using right now with this larger media is 110 to 250 micron. So we are gonna keep cleaning this radiator up. It's doing a fantastic job. Now I'm finding that the 60 grit is a little bit too rough in my opinion. So we're gonna switch that out for the 120, see how this works. And as you can see here, there is a bunch of different types of size tips for different size media. So let's fill up our canister with this 120 grit and continue cleaning the radiator. Well, here is our first piece of handiwork from the mobile ProBlaster. The old crusty radiator turned out pretty well. The majority of the time on this project was me trying to figure out grit, pressure, and tip size. The best combo that I found worked pretty well for my needs was the 60 grit aluminum oxide, paired at around 90 PSI and in the 110 to 250 micron tank. Now you might be wondering, what does the numbers on the top of these tanks mean and how do they differ? Well, if you look at the metal pole inside of it, at the very bottom, there's tiny holes, which is what the media flows through. And since this tank is 25 to 50 micron, the hole is pretty small on the bottom of that metal tube, right down there. You can barely see it on the 110 to 250 tank. The hole is fairly large, which allows more media and lower grit media to flow through it. So paired with the pressure, the grit, and the tank size, we also used this purple tip, which I found to be the best. They actually call it a violet tip, and it's 110 to 250 micron. I'm happy with this glossy black radiator. The frame is a little dusty, but now the shop needs a bit of a cleaning. Then we're going to pull up those fans, slap them on the back of this freshly painted radiator. Man, that's gonna look good in there. So a couple weeks ago, I found this company online called ProBrake. Now I'll roll the footage here when I went and measured every single old brake line off of the 2022 Brutale RR Nürburgring edition that I had. Some of the lines were cut in half, so I had to put those back together and measure the whole thing from top to bottom. Using the family clothing tape measure, I was able to measure each of the lines, and then in ProBrake's system online, I was able to custom make steel braided lines for this Brutale. Now the biggest thing with these lines is they are steel braided, which is a huge upgrade compared to the factory. Then after selecting the length of each brake line that I needed, which is 6 brake lines in total, I then was able to select what tips I wanted on the end of the brake line. And there was a massive selection to choose from. These elbow fittings at the end are for the ABS module. Like you can see here, this is our old burnt ABS module. So I took the measurement off of the old lines, like this 90-degree fitting here, and applied that to the brand new ProBrake lines. So essentially I was able to choose the Y and X axis on all of these lines to get it the perfect shape to match the OEM lines. And all these gummy bears are a huge plus. Also, that is the motherboard on the ABS module, and that's what the insides look like. Now we are going to pop all these bags open, eat a few gummy bears, and grab our clean front calipers and start routing those lines and figuring out our brakes on the Brutale. Well, I've never done custom brake lines before, but this is pretty simple. We have 2 sets of brake lines left. These 2 brake lines connect right here on the ABS module. As you can see, we got a slight bend for the inside one that has a slight bend. Then we practically got a 90-degree for this 90 degree. According to my measurements, these two brake lines are for the front brakes and these two bolts are for the rear brake lines. I can't remember what the layout is on the ABS module on this Fireblade, if the front lines are always on the left side and the rear lines are always on the right, but we will be cracking on this Fireblade in the near future. Now, something I wanted to point out besides the delicious gummy bears are all the extra copper O-rings for these lines. It just makes the installation feel so clean. And I need these because all mine are toasted. This rear brake line is much longer than the other one I have left, so I know this one goes to the rear caliper, so let's install it. All right, so every brake line has been installed. Starting off with our front caliper brake line, which connects both of the front calipers together. I got this in a special carbon texture, and then I got the rest in just black. I was just wanting to switch up at least one of the brake lines, see how this carbon effect looked. Then we have our brake line, which provides fluid to both of the calipers, which runs up and all the way back to the ABS module. And next to it, we have our brake lever brake line, which runs all the way back to here. I'm not exactly sure how these lines route, obviously because I didn't have a template to start with, but I'm sure we'll figure it out. Then over here on the clutch side, we have a line running directly to the clutch cylinder. And this bolt did end up threading into here. It just took a lot of work. Must have had to clean the threads out because this is a CNC part. Next, we have a line that runs from the rear brake master cylinder to the ABS module. And then on the other side, we have our line to the underslung caliper, which actually fits right in a groove on the swing arm, all the way to, you guessed it, the ABS module. You see these holes there? There are special clips that actually hold this line in the groove so it doesn't ever come out because it is right next to the chain. Now on all these lines, I did order an extra centimeter or two just so I made sure that I had enough to connect them all to the ABS module and nothing was pinching. So now we've got them all tied up, ready to be installed on our new ABS module, which is on the way. Because unfortunately, this is slightly used. The module that comes on the Nürburgring edition is the MK100, and apparently it has some very special electronics in it. I couldn't be happier with the brake setup we have so far. Now, if we come over here, you might be wondering why I have this socket in the parts. Well, previously I never got to tighten this oil pressure sensor because I simply needed a 15/16 deep socket. Our new starter has arrived, and let's install the new top with our starter as well. Well, the starter, the radiator, and that oil pressure sensor are all installed. I am loving how this bike is turning out so far. I know I mentioned I was gonna open that special box in this video, but it's gonna have to wait for the next one. It's pretty important. With that rear subframe installed, the bike is definitely taking shape now. But with all that being said, we'll catch you guys in the next one. See ya. Here's some bonus content for you guys. I picked up the dream machine for hauling motorcycles. Roll the clip. We are up next to buy the ultimate motorcycle hauler. It is live. $12,900. Sold on approval. We'll see if they accept my bid. Well guys, it is the next day from bidding on the Transit. The seller declined our first bid, counter offered me at $14,500. Then I counter offered him at $13,000 and he accepted. So we bought it for $13,000 with $3,000 in fees. It was $900 to get it shipped here. Now of that $900 for the shipping, $200 goes to the company and $700 goes to the driver. So we picked up $700 for the driver. He requested it in cash. Delivery driver should be here any minute now. Well, it got dark fast. Bro. All right, it has been some time. We are now gonna try and get this thing to run. By the way, we have confirmed that the damage on this is on the quarter panel, the door, and the passenger door. Also, we figured out this is a hotel transit van. As you can see, Courtyard by Marriott. Here is the key. It says van number 3 and has a hotel card on the back side. Does not smell bad in here. And no, that was not me. Pretty nice in here, not too shabby. Check out the 3 rows, boys. We need to pop the hood, check the oil. Oh baby, we're golden. Halfway. It is a little bit dark, but hey, that's oil. Smells like oil too. No, I'm not gonna taste it. Barely see it, but we got coolant. This might be power steering, I think. And we are at the minimum line right there. Let's just jump this thing. Got power and ground hooked up. Oh baby, let's turn the key. Okay boys, there we are. We're in 163,903 miles. There we go, we got the lights on. Definitely smells like a hotel in here though. Rear climate control. Let's turn the key. All right, she cranks. Doesn't want to fire over. How are we looking in here? Anything messed up? Burning, smoking? Nope, nope, nope. It is a little bit rusty in here though. Okay, this thing is definitely filthy, but hey, there's no water or... All right, filter's back in. Let's put this back together. Back in business. Oh no, I think there may be some internal damage. It was kind of hard to hear inside there cranking, so my little bro cranked it, and the next thing we need to do is basically strip this whole thing down. But since we're here, let's scan this sucker and see what codes we get. Well, well, well. Camshafts A and B, over retarded and over advanced. So hey, my favorite, more engine work. I can already hear it now. CJ, if it doesn't have 2 wheels, I'm not watching it.